Hello students, this is Mohit, TGT Science, Silver Oak International Schools, and we will continue our topic. In this video, we will discuss about the nutrition in the animals, how the different animals acquire the food. We will start with the amoeba. Amoeba is a unicellular animal living in the water. It has pseudopodia. Pseudopodia are the finger-like projections which helps in the capturing of the food. Whenever a food source comes nearby, the amoeba extends its pseudopodia and captures it. After that, it forms a food vacuole. Inside the food vacuole, the food is digested and then absorbed. This undigested food is then sent out through the surface of the cell. This is the nutrition in the amoeba. Nutrition in the human beings. In us, the nutrition takes place inside the digestive system consists of the alimentary canal and the associated glands. If we look at the different organs of the digestive system, it would be visible in the our next slide. Our alimentary canal starts from the mouth and ends with the anus. It has different organs. So first organ is the mouth. Mouth is the organ like in which we keep our food, and it is the starting point of alimentary canal. After that we have pharynx, which is the common passage for food and the air. Pharynx leads to the esophagus. Is also known as the food pipe. Esophagus leads into the stomach. Stomach is a j-shaped organ which is one of the main organ in the alimentary canal. After the stomach we have the small intestine. Small intestine has three parts: duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Duodenum receives the secretion from the two glands. First is the pancreas and second is the liver. Small intestine then leads into the large intestine. Large intestine absorbs the undigested food and then pushes it into the rectum, which is removed from our body through anus. Let us discuss the each part in full detail. What happens in our mouth? Our mouth have the teeth and the tongue. We have the different types of the teeth. These teeth crushes the food and converts them into the fine small particles. They also convert the food into a similar pattern. Saliva helps a lot in this process. Saliva lubricates the food, which helps in the breaking down of it. It also contains an enzyme which is known as the salivary amylase. This enzyme converts the starch present in the food into the simple sugar. Saliva also contain an enzyme known as the lysozyme, which kills the bacterial content present in the food. After that, food, which is now in the semi-liquid state, it passes into the stomach. In the stomach, there are specific gastric glands present. These gastric glands secrete the enzyme pepsin, hydrochloric acid, and the mucus. The main enzyme pepsin converts the proteins into the peptones or the smaller peptides. This pepsin enzyme is secreted in the inactive form, and that inactive form is the pepsinogen. This pepsinogen is converted into the pepsin by the action of the HCl. HCl activates the enzyme pepsin and also kills the bacterial content. This mucus protects the walls of the stomach from the action of HCl. Now in the stomach, there is a liquefied food. Like the food enters in the stomach in the semi liquid state, but with the action of the gastric glands, it is converted into the liquid form. This liquefied food passes into the small intestine. The first part of the small intestine is the duodenum. This part receives the secretion from the liver and the pancreas. Liver is the largest gland and the pancreas is the second largest gland. Liver secretes the bile juice. Bile juice do not contain any enzymes, but it contains the bile pigments, bilirubin, biliverdin, and the bile salts. This bile helps in the emulsification of the fat. What is the meaning of emulsification of the fat? The large fat globules is converted into the smaller microscopic globules so that the lipase would act on them in the efficient manner. Pancreatic juice contain the enzymes trypsin and the lipase. Trypsin break down the proteins and the lipase break down the fats. After that, food uh, uh, comes into the small intestine. In the other parts of the small intestine, the small intestine produces the juice known as the intestinal juice. The enzymes present in the intestinal juice converts the carbohydrates into the glucose, fat into the fatty acid, and the glycerol, and the proteins into the amino acid. This is the last step of the digestion. After that, no digestion would occur. After that, only absorption would occur. Small intestine have the several finger-like projections known as the villi, which increase the surface area enormously and helps in the absorption of the digested food. This villi is richly supplied with the blood and the lymph vessels, which transport the food. The undigested food passes into the large intestine. Water is absorbed in the large intestine, and waste material is removed through the anus. Our next life processes is the respiration. Respiration is the process by which food is burnt in the cells of the body with the help of the oxygen to release the energy. What is the form of the energy? You have read in the class 10th. We require the energy in the form of the ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This is the energy currency of the cell. There are two types of the respiration. First is the aerobic respiration and second is the anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. It produces more energy and the end products are the carbon dioxide, water and the energy. It takes place in all the organisms. So first of all, glucose in the presence of the oxygen in the cytoplasm converts into the pyruvate. This pyruvate then in the presence of the oxygen converts into the CO2, H2O and the energy. Pyruvate is converted into the carbon dioxide and the water, while in the anaerobic respiration, oxygen is not used. Glucose is converted into the pyruvate in the cytoplasm, and it is converted into the lactic acid and the energy within the muscle cells without the oxygen. This pyruvate can also convert it into the ethanol, CO2 and the energy in the absence of the oxygen in the yeast cells. But the energy which is produced in the anaerobic respiration is very less as compared to the aerobic respiration. This is the respiration in the humans. We have the respiratory system which consists of the nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea. Trachea will leads into the two bronchi, bronchi into the bronchioles, other things, and the last is the alveoli. The air enters into our nostrils. The air and the mucus present in the nasal cavity traps the dust particles. That's why breathing through the nose is more beneficial through the breathing through mouth, because in the mouth there are no hairs and the mucus which can trap the dust particles. Then the nasal cavity leads into the pharynx, then into the larynx. Larynx is known as the voice box of the humans. It helps in producing these sounds with the help of vocal cords. Then we have trachea. Trachea have the rings of cartilage which prevents it from the collapsing when there is no air in the trachea. Bronchi divides into the bronchioles, and then finally into the alveoli. Alveoli are the exchange area for the gases. They are richly supplied with the blood vessels, and they also increases the surface area for the exchange of the gases. These alveoli look like the bunch of grapes. What is the mechanism of the breathing? As we know, air always travels from the high pressure to the low pressure, and this pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. Well, the muscles of the diaphragm contracts and they move downwards. This increases the volume of the chest cavity. Increase in the volume decreases the pressure, so the air present outside rushes into the lungs. For the breathe out air, our muscles of the diaphragm relax and move upward. This chest cavity contracts and air goes out of the lungs. Our next topic is the transportation in the human beings, where there are different materials like the oxygen, food, waste material which has to be transported from the one organ to the another. So that's for that reason we have the transport system which consists of the blood, arteries, veins, capillaries and the heart. Blood carries all these things. It have RBC, WBC and the blood platelets. There are different blood vessels, arteries, veins, capillaries. Arteries always carries the oxygenated blood. They are thick walled and do not have valve. Veins carries the deoxygenated blood. They are thin walled and have walls. Capillaries are the very narrow blood vessels which connect the arteries and the veins together. The exchange of the food, water, oxygen, carbon dioxide occur through these capillaries. This heart is a muscular organ which pump the blood to all the parts of the body. It has four chambers. The upper two are the atrium and the lower two are the ventricles. These atrium push the pump the blood into the ventricles, and from the ventricles they are pumped out of the heart. The presence of these four chambers prevent the mixing of the oxygenated and the deoxygenated blood, because these atrium and the ventricles are separated by a wall known as the septum. These atrium and the ventricles also have the walls which prevent the backward flow of blood.